All right, ladies and gentlemen, we will continue. Just as a point of reference, we are still in Afghanistan. We talked about fuel earlier on, and we showed you the southern route. As you can see, the southern route sometimes had problems, either border crossings, roads, weather, insurgents, etc., etc. And a lot of times we got pretty low on fuel. It was at the point where there was times we really thought we would have to do some conservation of conserving fuel in a pretty large manner. So we went back to Central Command and said, hey, look, we need help. Find us some more fuel, find us another way. How about a northern route? And they came back and said, this is what we're doing. And they went out and they looked for companies that could push us fuel from the north versus bringing it up from the port of Karachi in Pakistan. And so, again, just kind of a reminder, we have those two southern border crossings at Sharman and Torkham. Well, there's an agency called Defense Logistics Agency, along with Defense Energy. The Defense Energy is a DoD element that it supports all U.S. military when it comes to energy requirements, be it Navy, Air Force, what have you. Yes, the particular service will deal with the liquid on the on the retail level, but finding that source and doing the bidding and the pricing and all that stuff falls to an agency called Defense Energy. Defense Energy was given the task to find us a way to get more fuel into Afghanistan. And they put out bids for companies that could do that. And they said, hey, look, we need a reliable source. We need to have something that can get up at least to the border of Afghanistan. There was only one company that answered that call. The company said that we could put you as much fuel as you want on the border of Afghanistan at any time you want. All you have to do is just call us. We will store it there if you don't want it. And at that particular time, just let us know what you want, how you want it, when you want it. Well, this company had experience of dealing in Afghanistan. And it's really kind of interesting to us because that company, its name is called Red Star. And Red Star was basically a Soviet company. It belonged to the Russians. And guess what? They supported the Russians in Afghanistan during their occupation in the 1980s. But fuel is fuel, interestingly enough. And as times change, what they did is they said, okay, fine, how are you going to do that? Well, believe it or not, when the Russians were in Afghanistan, Red Star had a large tanker farm built just on the other side of the border with Afghanistan and Turkmenistan. It could hold millions of gallons of fuel. Red Star basically said, we will rail fuel to that facility, we will fill it up, and when you want it, come and get it. Well, guess what? The only problem was now we had to deal with the Turkmenistan government to get Afghan drivers across the border to pick up the fuel. And if anybody's been in Afghanistan, those drivers were probably not the, I wouldn't even say they weren't even marginalized sometimes. But that's all we had. There was a lot of negotiations at the State Department level. They finally agreed, okay, they could go across the border. They could go to the fuel refinery or the fuel tanks, fill up their tankers, and get the hell out of the country. So we had one northern route, and that helped us when we go down that ring road. I showed you the ring road earlier. There's that border crossing we're talking about right now, right here. That allowed us to then bring fuel into the south. We can then push some of it up into the ISAF personnel in the northern sectors. Well, but they also said we will activate a tank farm that we still basically kind of own in Afghanistan. And it's in this, I'll go back one slide, it's in this little town called Harrington. And They have these large fuel tanks. We will reactivate it, we will put fuel in there, and guess what? Come and get it. Now, this particular one, we don't have to deal with the or across borders, we will just go up and get it. So what we did is we then went out and let contracts in Afghanistan with local trucking companies to push fuel from those two locations in the north down to the south when we needed it. And most of the time, that was a very active route for us. So we had a northern route, a southern route, just to kind of give you an idea. Bagram Airfield alone, on any given day, it took 50,000 gallons of fuel at a minimum to run that base. There was a lot of activity, there was a lot going on there. That was just one instance. So it kind of gives you an idea of how much fuel we were pushing. At the end of this, you'll get an idea of what we pushed. Ring Road, oh, another interesting thing, that Red Star company, they said that, look, in the event that we have any issues with border crossings, whatever, we have a contingency plan. You see this little, I'll say the name, Baku in Azerbaijan, they had a facility there. We will, and they basically guaranteed, we will push fuel, we'll put them in tankers, run them across the Caspian Sea, we'll then put them in tankers, and we will then run them down the rail line to that border crossing in Afghanistan. We will have fuel. So the northern route was pretty active. They pushed fuel, and it helped alleviate issues. Red Star, say what you want about them, they were a very good customer for, I should say, a very good provider of fuel for us in that rotation. I don't know how many other rotations they did that for, but I know that for us, it gave us a little breathing room as we move forward. Okay, this is where I'm going to try to take you into Afghanistan. I'm going to give you a chance to see what a lot of the guys and gals saw. One of the things I basically did was I knew that I'm going to have all these different units coming from all different places, all different major commands that are going to fall in under the JLC. And I always felt that we needed to tell the logistician story. We needed to be able to, when you guys and gals have your families back home, have these readiness, family readiness group meetings, and you talk about what's going on down there, we'd like to make sure that you have newsletters that go to them so that you can see and hear what we have. But also take film, to show videos, have those little on-the-spot interviews with guys and gals that are from that particular unit that we can send back home so they can say, hey, look, my guys and my gals, hey, this is what they're doing. Well, I went in and I asked for a public affairs officer. I said, hey, look, I don't have one. I'd really like to have one. I really need him to help run point on all this and tell the story. And I had quite a few people come and interview for him, but nobody wanted to go to Afghanistan because that was one of the requirements. You will deploy with us. You will put a uniform on. We will make you a GS employee of the government. You will fall under the Geneva Convention. You will be embedded with us. You are our embedded public affairs officer. But then we had one, and he says, oh, hell yeah, I'll go with you. He was a retired Army Sergeant, 82nd Airborne. He had spent 10 years in the military, Desert Storm veteran. He says, I'll go. And he was probably the best money I had ever invested in anything I did on this particular. He helped us tell that story. And so down here it says here, and his first major video was of we sent him down south into Kandahar. We said, hey, look, we've got all these different units down there. Go talk to the soldiers, put stuff together, help the units put their newsletters together. And, oh, by the way, if they're supporting a major project, go take a look at that project. Find a way to get up there and go interview the guys and gals that are doing things that aren't supposedly logisticians, but the logisticians are supporting. So he goes down to Kandahar, he starts doing that, and what's going on down there? Well, the engineers are down there, they're building a road. course, you know, engineers, that takes a lot of stuff, especially food or repair parts. We're pushing that up to the engineers, what have you. And the next thing you know, our public affairs officer is on the truck going forward because he's going to see what the hell this is all about. And he, believe it or not, put this together, and I'm going to now see if I can show you what he put in it. You will get to meet this guy. Now I'll ask you this, he's going to interview people, he's going to talk to people, he will introduce himself, all the stuff, the cameras and the tripods that he had, he brought that all with him, it was all his own stuff. But I'm going to ask you to do one thing, look behind the person he's talking to, because that's when you're going to get a chance to see the territory that these engineers were working in as they were getting this road ready for the national elections. Back row, if you could do me a favor, just give me a thumbs up that you can hear this, okay?
The Transcontinental Railroad, the Alcan Highway, and now the Tarrant Count Road. That's the latest project that Army engineers are working miracles on. The soldiers are turning 200-year-old goat paths into a 21st century highway, running between the regional hubs of Tarrant Count and Kandahar.
We're not trying to build a road that's going to just last for a year or 6 months or something like that. We're trying to make it permanent.
But building 117 kilometers of good road through mountains, gullies, and Taliban hideouts is easier said than done.
Biggest challenge we face, I would say time in the day. If we had 32 hours in a day, about 9 days a week.
And time is a luxury they don't have. They plan on completing the road in time for September Afghan elections.
Communicate to the people that their government cared about them and what's going on in their lives, so we wanted to get this done so they could not only have the road, but use it for the election process.
They may not realize it yet, but the hard work these soldiers are doing here on the Tarrant Count Road will be paying dividends long after they've gone home. Because this is not just going to be a transportation route. This road is going to serve as a path to economic prosperity and possibly even regional stability.
The task force works in teams, surveying, bulldozing, scraping and grading as they go. They even find their own materials and water.
All the materials, all the extra, there's extra rabbits and some of those cows and stuff.
But despite the deadline, they're ahead of schedule, moving about a half a kilometer a day.
I've got to say that when engineers produce a road for the people, so they can get health care, so they can have better information, so they can go to elections, so they can do the things that benefit their family, I can't see them any greater impact in theater.
The 18th Engineer Brigade and Task Force Pacemaker, building a better future, 1 foot at a time. Brandon Lamar, Joint Logistics Command, Afghanistan.
Kind of gives you an idea of what they basically had to deal with when they were down in that particular area. Now, once this came out, again, all these had to get. We had sensors. We had people who made sure that we didn't, take pictures of things that we weren't supposed to. He got all these videos cleared, but there were some that he did, and he couldn't get it cleared because of exactly what I told you. Look behind. And see what's going on behind them. And he picked up some things that he wasn't supposed to, and of course we never got to see those videos again because the censors were pretty strict on us. Humanitarian relief. Remember, one of our missions was to go down and basically relay or deal with the community and do some goodwill, what have you. And that's what we did. And I'm going to show you one film here. The JLC, the logisticians were part of this particular little operation. But it was actually run by the Brits in this particular one. Interestingly enough, the Brits on this rotation brought in their contingent from Gurkhas. And I don't know if you're familiar with the Gurkhas. The Gurkhas have been with the British Army since the early 1800s. They fought fearlessly for them in certain battles, and ever since then they have been assigned to certain British units. They're from Nepal, they're not British citizens, they're not part of the Commonwealth, yet they treat them as if they are one of their own. And I will tell you that if you've ever heard about the Gurkhas, and they tell you, and you hear rumors about their knives, whatever you've heard is probably true. Because they carry their little knives. They're very, very fierce fighters. And these guys provided the security. I didn't have too many heartaches about my guys going in there because I knew the Gurkhas were there. You will meet one of them. Brandon got to actually interview the Gurkha commander. We were in Kabul.
From food supplies and civil assistance to providing jobs, the Joint Logistics Command is helping the Afghan people rebuild their society.
But projects like these aren't just done alone. It's a team effort involving 4 different elements: U.S. and coalition forces, government organizations here in Afghanistan, non-government organizations, and of course private contractors to help with the shipping and the labor.
Through contract employment, many Afghans have new economic opportunity.
I want to prove to the women or the men that I know this is a tough job, but I want to prove that I can do it as well.
These projects are more than a handout. Many supplies, like food items, are distributed to essential employees. This supplements their income and aids stability in the new government.
Thank you for your cooperation, particularly with the rations. The food helps the Afghan Ministry of Health and our employees. And we ask that you continue to send this assistance and send even more if possible.
Civic assistance projects also aid education. This school has over 10,000 students and a big challenge: educating the young in the aftermath of the Taliban regime.
They had difficulties with the Taliban, but they are better now. The biggest difficulties now are with the poverty that many students are facing.
But the personal interaction puts a lasting face on it all.
And it helps bridge an enormous gap. And I think it goes a lot as well.
George W. Bush.
Given the opportunity to work with the locals face to face and seeing results immediately, and even if it's just putting a smile on a child's face, that in itself has a satisfaction.
Civil assistance, economic opportunity, new friendships. Not what you usually see on the news. Brandon Lamar, Joint Logistics Command, Afghanistan.
By now, I started to get phone calls. Who is this guy? What's he doing? And so, bottom line is, the public affairs officer at my higher headquarters knew of him. Believe it or not, after a couple of films like this, and he started getting noticed, I got a credential. He got himself credentialed, which means he could go into the press corps. He could sit for the daily briefings with the press. He could figure out what was going on. Believe it or not, he needed no introduction. After a while, he could get to the point where he could go down to the terminal, and he could find out what was going on that day, what was going out, and he could get on those particular boroughs and missions to my chagrin, which then basically I had to get my deputy, my XO, to say, okay, you gotta wheel him in because I need to know where he's at and don't forget who he works for. But a lot of times he would come up with some phenomenal interviews like that, and so he would interview anybody that he could get his hands on, and that's one of the nice things about Brandon. But again, a lot of these were going back home, and a lot of the soldiers' families got to see a lot of this stuff and the interaction that their soldiers were.
From food supplies and civil assistance.
Now, in that last one, you saw a female, with an interesting story, and she became very, very famous. She was a female owner of a truck company. And I'm going to let Brandon tell the story, and you'll get to meet her here in this next segment.
Whether moving military supplies or humanitarian aid, logisticians in Afghanistan rely on host nation shipping companies.
But there's a new development in that partnership. You see, one of those companies is is owned and operated by a woman.
Zarguna Walizadeh took over her late husband's trucking company after the Taliban were defeated, and she's not looking back.
I want to prove to the women or the men that I know this is a tough job, but I want to prove that I can do it as well. And also I want to encourage all the ladies of Afghanistan to get into the field. Let's do it. We can do it, and I challenge all the women in our neighboring countries that we are capable of doing the same job that a man can do.
And the troops are glad that she and her company are there.
It allowed the soldiers to be freed up to do other mission crucial tasks.
She's glad to help non-governmental relief organizations by shipping food and civic assistance items donated by U.S. forces.
I'd like to send a message to everyone in Afghanistan that after 23 years of war, we are living in peace. That peace allows me to come here and establish my trucking business. I know it's a tough job, but I'm still in the business. And we are looking forward to the future. Peace will prevail, and we will continue to live a civil and normal life.
Brandon Lamar, Joint Logistics Command, Afghanistan.
Okay, earlier on I mentioned to you, I pointed out to you a unit on that unit slide where it was black, and it was mortuary affairs. I said I was going to talk to you a little bit about this. Mortuary affairs, you know, what you're seeing up there is some shadows of what we used to call casualty assistance, or what have you. Well, not casualty assistance, grave registration. That term changed quite a few years ago because we no longer bury our dead on the battlefield. In the last couple of, I'd say over the last 20 years or what have you, our technology, our transportation system is such that we no longer bury. And so you have a team that comes into the country with you, and they prepare the remains, and they then get shipped back home. The goal was for us in Afghanistan for Rotation 6 was from the time the remains were recovered from the battlefield and to the time they landed at Dover Air Force Base at the Joint Mortuary Assistance Command team, 72 hours. And I will tell you that from the time we picked up remains in Afghanistan to the time that there was a dedicated C-17 on the tarmac at Bagram was less than 12 hours. They would pick up the remains, and those remains would be flown straight back to Dover. We have come a long ways from the time, you know, a lot of those are pictures from World War II. But these young men and women will work through the night, they will work through whatever it is, because once that C-17 is on the ground, its only mission is to bring those remains home. And I'm going to I bring that up now, and I want to introduce you to these young men and women. 6 of them came from the reserves, or they're usually in the reserves. We train with them on an annual basis, at a minimum. When we have division exercises, large brigade exercises, these guys get activated, they come down and train with us. We know them, we have a pretty good idea. That guy in the far left-hand side is a Staff Sergeant Hernandez. This is his 3rd rotation with us. I think he had like 3 or 4 more before he finally retired. He is a mortician on the outside. A lot of these guys and gals have experience in this field. I will tell you that the military school is pretty intense. A lot of them have internships at large mortuaries around the country. Los Angeles, Dallas, Atlanta, Philadelphia, Boston, New York, right out here in Cook County. So they do not get their first exposure to remains on the battlefield. Pretty intensive, but I will tell you they live up to what you see on that slide. It's ensuring dignity, honor, and respect to all fallen service members. Ladies and gentlemen, when they come off that C-17 at Dover Air Force Base, what you would see is not a casket, it's a transfer case. there's a process that they go through. I will tell you that it's quite something. You can research that on the internet. You can see what they do at the Joint Mortuary Affairs team out there in Dover. It's all on the internet. You can see what that entails. But it is quite a system. But I will tell you that they do a phenomenal job. It may not be the most physically demanding job, but mentally, emotionally, spiritually, it's probably one of the toughest jobs in the military. Unfortunately, in this rotation, we had 34 Allied soldiers pass. We had 114 Americans, for a total of 148. 2 military affairs teams, 1 in Bagram, 1 in Kandahar. All of those were taken care of by these teams. The Allied countries usually would have their own people, but again, it was usually us that would assist them at Bagram or Afghanistan. So it's out there, and I just wanted to pass that on to you because this is what, 3 months after I was on the ground. It's about 4 months or so after they've been on the ground. They've had a number of casualties already. They already had 1 mass casualty where they had to deal with a helicopter coming down with 17 remains. That was an all-night deal to get the 17 remains ready for that C-17 that was going to be on the tarmac the next morning. Unfortunately, we had another one. 28th of June, 2005. For all you military historians out there, you might know what Operation Red Wings is, but a lot of you probably didn't know about this, the lone survivor. That was where, four Navy SEALs were fast roped into a particular location because they were going after a particular terrorist. Unfortunately, they were found out fairly quickly. 3 of the 4 SEALs were killed. Of course, 1 survived. That's Marcus Luttrell. They were up in this particular area, and it was a nasty little fight. The problem is that when they had called for help, we sent in 2 CH-47 Chinooks, of which one of them was shot down, and in that was 16 members. All 16 members did not survive. So we now had 16 members that we had to send home with a possibility of 4 others. That at that particular time we did not know. But the end result of the whole operation was 19 killed. There was 3 Navy SEALs that didn't make it out of that operation, and then there was a 16 that was killed on that helicopter. Again, they worked all night to take care of those 60, because we did not have the 3 Navy SEALs that were killed yet. I will tell you that that team then went with the recovery elements from the units in there to collect them. We sent 2 chaplains. Again, it is something that really affects the individual soldier. I always like to put names to numbers. Those are not just numbers. There's the 19 that lost their lives in that particular operation. And they have not been forgotten. The only thing is that was early on in our rotation. We had another mass casualty where we lost 17 Spanish Allied soldiers in the helicopter operation. Remember, we had 34 Allied casualties. Those 17 were half of what we lost in that one particular operation. So again, the hats go off to these young men and women. I will tell you that a mortuary affairs team is only in country for 6 months, and they get rotated out. Every 6 months, new mortuary affairs team, the reserve teams, get rotated out. All right, moving north, Marshak Sharif Sharifa. I can never pronounce that. You might say, okay, what is that? That is up north. It's right. You can see right there. It's in the northern sector. It is an ISAF Why are we talking about this particular area? Well, you know, with any rotation, you get agreements, and it seems that our president at that particular time agreed with the president, or okay with the president of the country of Jordan, that if the country of Jordan puts a hospital that will help support the population, the general population in that provincial capital, they'd be willing to do it if the United States would transport them there, rotate teams out every 6 months, but also put a support team on the ground to support it, i.e. fuel the generators, and basically all logistics functions. It was agreed upon. We inherited that mission. We had a small team there. An interesting fact, we're going to go into MES right now. We're going to meet that team. But there's one individual or one thing that you're going to get to meet, and that is kind of an added guest, I guess you could say. When the first rotations that were up there, when we were battling with the Taliban and what have you, evidently our forces helped a young farmer. And in gratitude of helping that young farmer, he said, hey, look, I want to give you something. And he gave him a donkey. So this team has a donkey out there that we were maintaining in goodwill so that they wouldn't, think bad of us. And each rotation passed that donkey on to the next rotation. Well, his name is Jack. Now, look, it's probably named by an infantryman, and they probably went, Jack, finish the rest of it, cut that half off of it. Jack became very, very famous. Well, you have to be careful with diseases and all the other stuff that you got going on. We have veterinarians that come in with us. And they say, well, what the hell do you have animals? Well, we do have animals. We have all kinds of dogs, guide dogs, drug dogs, bomb dogs. But that's not what their main mission is. It's disease control. They are going after water, how are you storing your food, all these different things. They're checking for all of that. And usually it comes from feces, from something that's out there in the field, what have you, and all of a sudden you got a donkey. So these vets will go all over the country, checking on all this other stuff. And I made it a point to tell my XO, or my XO, when the vets go to MES, because we had a small team, we had a PRT up there, a provisional reconstruction team. It's basically a team that helps. All I did was help support them as far as food and fuel, whatever. But these guys would help the local government govern. So when they go up there and check all these, you got to stop in at MES, and you got to basically take care of Jack. I will tell you, Jack was probably the best taken care of donkey in all of Afghanistan. His hoofs were clean, his teeth were filed, he had all his shots. And Jack was probably the biggest talker in the world. You're going to meet Jack. You're going to see him. And all I can tell you is, Jack was Jack. You're also going to get a chance to talk to or see the commander of the hospital, and you're going to get a chance to see what kind of living conditions they have out there. This is MES. This is the airport at MES. We've got a C-17 coming in, probably to take care of a rotation, a new rotation of hospital personnel will do the training.
Mazar-e-Sharif. Today, it's a bustling regional hub in northern Afghanistan. But less than 4 years ago, it looked like this. The difference? A handful of U.S. and coalition troops who make life better for thousands.
The economy change, the peace, the people are not worried about, their life,
Mazar-e-Sharif, call it MES, is home to less than 2,000 Americans and a donkey named Jack.
Of course, it is Jack. He doesn't pose too much of a problem.
These soldiers do it all, from cooking to flight operations. But their main mission is to provide support to to the Jordanian hospital.
We feel just generates mostly because we're doing the hospital because.
During our mission here, we had a great opportunity to work with the Americans. They helped us a lot, and because of that, we were able to accomplish our medical mission here.
With the language and cultural differences, the Jordanians' medical assistance is invaluable. In fact, we'll stay outside today to respect the Afghan patient's privacy. But the long hours maintaining supplies and fuel pay dividends that will be remembered for years.
People are very happy that we're doing something positive. It's a big change between what they see on TV and what's actually happening here.
It's a good opportunity to work with troops from other countries, to learn more about their background and for our Jordan troops to get to know them.
So I would say the best part about being here would be the opportunity to help the Jordanians accomplish their mission and just see the results.
An outpost of assistance, manned by 24 Americans and a few friends. Another day at a place called Mez. Brandon Lamar, Joint Logistics Command, Afghanistan.
Jack, well, 2 rotations later, Jack went home. The farmer came back and he actually went back to the farm alive, but he was given back to the farmer, and the farmer actually asked for him back. So Jack went home, and the rotations after that didn't have to do with Jack. As you can see, he was one of the sassy side sometimes, but he loved company. All right, we saw one humanitarian aid operation. All the different units within my command got tagged every once in a while, and they basically came down and says, okay, we need to go into a school or hospital to do this particular aid mission. It's yours. And you've got to pick up all the security and what have you. And this particular one was ours. Our chaplain got really got into it, but I had to remind him that he's a non-combatant. He can take over the security. I had definitely had the one guy do all of that, but he kind of pretty much ran it. It was in his wheelhouse, as he said. I let him have that piece of it, and there he is. Get that finger up. Probably thought he was in church again. But anyway, we will take you up into the mountains this time, and you will get to see.
These JLC soldiers are on a special mission. Today, their job is a fun one, to help people. This convoy, like others across Afghanistan, is loaded with school supplies, clothes, and other things to make life easier for the Afghans.
In the box we have paper, pencils, we have knit hats, just any kind of school supply that is sent to us that we can utilize, or that they can utilize in their classrooms.
These are badly needed items, especially after years of Taliban persecution. And in the nearby village of Kaliblan, crowds flock for donated clothing items.
Hey, Brad. Yeah, don't get supplies like this. We had such an abundance to give them. It's great. Real good experience.
While these visits are great for both the villagers and the troops, there's a very tangible benefit to the coalition.
Tips from villagers have led to the capture of dozens of Taliban and hundreds of weapons and IEDs. But for these soldiers, it's not about the big picture. It's personal.
Look at the kids, you drive by and they're all waving, they're all smiling, they're happy to see us. And that's really where the future lies.
Brandon Lamar, Joint Logistics Command, AFN News.
Did you catch that, AFN News? I mean, every once in a while, I would go, where the hell is Brandon? Every night at 5:30, Armed Forces Network, we did have TV, Armed Forces Network would basically have a little segment at 5:30. It was always something on Iraq. Well, all of a sudden, the next thing you know, these started showing up, and it gave a chance for our brothers and sisters in Iraq to know that, hey, there is another war going on, and this is what's going on in Afghanistan. So we we'd laugh a lot of times because I'd ask my XO, hey, where's Brandon? He'd say, well, watch the news at 5:30. That's how I find out sometimes where he's at. But, you know, he always did come home. Okay, not yet. But I'm going to bring you up north now to K2. K2 was a major supply hub for us during the war, and this is going to be a before kind of introduction to K2, and K2 will. But I will let Brandon tell you the rest of the story. Here's K2.
Karshi Karnavad, call it K2, a key link in the support chain. Food, water, munitions, and more are staged through here to support the coalition mission in Afghanistan.
It's very important. They don't have ammunition, food, and water. This is not going to go anywhere. And in terms of the civilians, the locals, humanitarian assistance is one of the best ways to help them out.
Everything from logistics to finance to force protection.
I like growing systems from the ground up, which we're doing a lot of, and we get much more involved in logistics as a 3/30th element here than we normally would because we're a force protection unit, and we get to work very closely with the Air Force on all these issues.
The soldiers and airmen here work long hours, but find it all worthwhile.
The best part of being here, I think, is we play an integral part in the operations going on in Afghanistan right now, in this theater.
It's good. We get a lot of work, and so we stay busy. That's what makes the deployment go like faster.
Brandon Lamar, Joint Logistics Command, Uzbekistan.
It wasn't too long after that, in May, they had some major unrest in Uzbekistan. The United States protested or expressed this displeasure with the human rights violations that they saw in those particular that unrest. And you can see there, it got pretty intense, pretty nasty. However, on the 26th of July, our ambassador on the ground, his phone rang, and he basically was told that in no uncertain terms that the negotiations between the United States and Uzbekistan are pretty much stalled, that there was going to be no way to recover from it, and that he's basically telling us, Uzbekistan is telling us to get out. You have 6 months to get out. This is 26 July, you have until 26 January 2006. You have to be out of Uzbekistan, and anything you leave behind becomes ours. Well, you know how that goes. So, you know, the stuff rolls downhill. You know, I said, and then the phone starts ringing. Well, because what happens is the national press picks it up. They basically start to report, and of course everybody's saying, okay, now what? My phone rang a couple of days after the ambassador got the call. And when you get the call and says, come to the head shed now, you know that something is up. My chief of staff basically said, okay, this is your mission. You've got the logistics, you know how to do stuff. Have a nice day, get us out of K2. And so I had a lot of, tools in my toolkit to make that happen. That individual that you saw up there, he talked about the 330th ROC. The 330th ROC is a Rear Operations Center. It is actually a subordinate unit to the 29th Support group, the group that I had in Europe. They are very good at force protection, top operations and what have you, and they get tagged a lot of times. 29th took them into Kosovo, used them extensively. They were brought into Afghanistan with us. They went up under the installation brigade and came in to basically be the Mary May itself for all the different FOBs. We put a lot of them into those FOBs, and my meeting, first thing is, okay, I'm gonna have to make a phone call, I make a phone call to another 06, because he says, hey, I loaned you 20 guys, I need them all back. I took them along with them. We had a large contingent of KBR. KBR was in country. KBR was our civilian contractors that did a lot for us. And a lot of the guys that put K2 together were still there. We put all of them together along with our Air Force buddies, because the Air Force had 12 C-130 stationed there. We have got to get out of there. And oh, by the way, we have to do it in a phase. We broke K2 down into 8 sectors, and we started closing them by sector. A lot of work. But it basically came down to, it's kind of like we played that Willie Nelson song again, on the road again, because we needed trucks, we needed to get that stuff out of there, we needed to have people plan, start to move this south to that. Well, nothing is easy. You can't really move that stuff as fast as you might think. 300 miles from K2 to Barroom, and by road it will take you 70 hours. Unless, of course, you can use a shortcut. There is a shortcut. Use the Solon Pass, and you definitely want to do that because you don't want to use the goat trails through this. That is the Hindu Kush Mountains. It's basically where the Hindus go to die. It's what it translates to. We have to now, basically negotiate with the Afghans, because this Solon Pass is the major artery north. We have to put our trucks, our convoys, through this little tunnel, and then along this road, along the edge of these mountains, get that shortcut down to Bali. When you start doing plans and what have you, it ain't gonna work. We have an idea of how many short tons we've got to move, how much stuff we've got to move, so now what? Well, maybe we don't move it all at Barroom all at once. We started looking at, we got a rail line between, there is a rail, believe it or not, after that Harrington, remember that fuel point that the Red Star had? There's a rail line that goes across the border into that. I think that's how they railed all their fuel, was by rail, but the rail line continued into Manhattan. Okay, we're gonna rail it. So we railed a lot of our stuff from K2 into Mez, along with trucking it. And the thing to remember is, this is July, Hindu Kush. By the middle of October, the snow is gonna be so bad that I don't care what kind of paths, what kind of shortcuts, usually it's very, very difficult to move through there. So that's the Solon Pass. This kind of gives you another real quick picture of the tunnel. Along the edge of the mountain range, to cut down a lot of this, they had a road, but they put on there what they call a avalanche gallery. It looks like a big tunnel. From the outside, this is it right here. You can see those are, it's got windows in it. So if you have an avalanche or what have you, the snow comes down, or what have you, or rocks, you still have a road in place. So we had to start negotiating with these guys to use that. Oh, by the way, the Uzbeks don't want the Afghan trucks in Uzbekistan, so we had to use Uzbek's trucks. Well, they don't want to drive at night. I mean, on and on and on. Make a long story short, we made a lot of it happen by road, but a lot of it got railed into Mez. We flew out ammo, we flew out all the sensitive stuff, the major weapon systems, but we were on the road again, pushing stuff forward. We had a team come in and check the rail lines, made sure that it was the right gauge. I mean, it just went on and on. But we did it. But before we can tell you how that all played out, one of the main tasks, one of my main missions while we were there was this. The 18th of September finally arrives. And what that is the Afghan national elections. And so we're, in the meantime, taking care of K2, moving all that stuff out. But you've got to move nationally. They had election observers coming in all over the world to observe this. I'm going to play a tape. Brandon went up and went into one of the small villages that nobody else wanted to go to, and he, is going to give you a report from one of these very, very small villages, look behind all the people to see what kind of living conditions these people had. But they had an election booths and facilities there for these people to cast their ballot. And so on the 18th, he drives up there with a particular, oh, by the way, you will not find one national media outlet, not one national newspaper in any of these outlying areas. It usually was all the major areas around Kabul, Kandahar, some of the major cities. So when this popped up, you were getting a look at something that really nobody else really covered.
After decades of war, after years of oppression, the ballot is stronger than the bullet. On September 18th, millions of Afghans went to the polls to vote in the National Assembly elections for the first time in 36 years.
Today is important. Today, the Afghan people select the representatives that will help develop the country. Since morning, more than 100 people have voted here. A very good turnout. No problems.
But the act of voting alone was no simple task. With 5,800 candidates vying for 249 seats in the Walesi Jirga, or National Assembly, and 420 on the provincial councils.
The women now can vote free, without harassment, and participate in the future of Afghanistan.
With high rates of illiteracy across the country, many candidates use symbols on the ballot to help identify themselves.
And security was a big issue as well. Thousands of Afghan National Police and Army troops were joined by U.S., NATO, and coalition forces to ensure that the polls stayed open despite prior threats.
In the election today, things are going okay. No problems so far.
The real winners in this National Assembly elections are the Afghan people, who courageously took a step forward, breaking away from violence and death into a future of peace and prosperity.
And after nearly 3 decades of war, logistics were essential. Several coalition road construction projects were completed in time to help Afghan voters make their way to remote polling stations.
For 3 decades, everything has come down and been destroyed by war.
With more than 6,300 polling stations like this one across the country, many of them in remote locations, it's going to take some time for the Afghan government and the Joint Electoral Management Body to count and verify all today's votes.
But in this crucial election, the true winners are the people of Afghanistan.
I forecast the future of Afghanistan by this day.
Brandon Lamar, Joint Logistics Command, Afghanistan.
So we get the national elections, they're completed, and I don't remember how long it took to count all the votes and what have you, and the election results were finally posted. But it was kind of one of those, sigh of relief, that's done. But then, nothing is for sure in Afghanistan. About 3 weeks later, 8 October 2005, it was a sunny day. I can remember going to breakfast. I had my morning staff call, all the units call, what have you. I went to breakfast. I forgot something in my hooch, which is nothing more than a plywood hut. And I went back to get it. And as I was standing in my hooch, I could hear this horrible sound. It sounded like literally a truck going down the main road in Ballroom without a muffler and what have you. It was just horrible. And then I started to feel like I was like, things started to swirl around. And then the weirdest feeling of all, it felt like I was at the beach, and this big wave was just going underneath my feet. I literally came up and I came down, and everything was moving left and right. I'm like, holy shit. And so the 8th of October, we call it the day the earth moved. And believe it or not, about 200 miles to the east of Bagram, a 7.6 earthquake hit in the mountains of Pakistan. Now, the damage for us in Bagram wasn't too bad. But we had a number of fogs along the Afghan-Pakistani border, Jalalabad, Asadabad, further down south, Salerno, and a number of other things. Remember, the border is right in here. It is just a mess. 7.62, something like 80,000 people were killed in that particular earthquake in Pakistan. The devastation was pretty bad. Buildings were demolished, roadways were wiped out, villages were literally. So what happens? We get the call. U.S. military, coalition forces, we need your help. We need help to get supplies into the mountains of Afghanistan, to all these different villages, because even the non-governmental agencies, the Doctors Without Borders, the Red Cross, or the Red Crescent, they couldn't get in there. So they called on us for having aviation assets. And so, again, we had to put teams together to bring a lot of stuff forward. We ended up setting up 4 bases in Afghanistan. Even though the Afghans, remember the Afghans didn't like us over there, but this is an exception. And we had a lot of U.S. military in Pakistan helping them with this Pakistan earthquake relief. And real quickly, we will take you into, we'll show you 2 quick. You can get an idea of what it was like.
Aviation is essential to earthquake relief, but the birds can't fly without first-rate support. Everything from spare parts to fuel can make the difference between life and death.
What the vets are doing, the nurses and the doctors, they're doing all they can to help the earthquake victims here in Pakistan.
U.S. forces operate 5 support bases in Pakistan, where even support operations are a challenge.
Getting the host station tankers up the mountainside would be the biggest challenge, the terrain.
For that, outlook, so they kind of showed us how to work together and be a team.
But despite the austere conditions, they enjoy making a difference.
That's part of my job, probably would be hot refueling. It's quite an adrenaline rush. The birds land and we're at a park, and the planes are still running. We run up under there, refuel, run back, and they fly off and continue on with it.
The best thing is the mission itself. Saving lives is a noble mission. In addition to that, we get to work with the Pakistani military and the other components of our U.S. forces as well.
Brandon Lamar, Joint Logistics Command, Pakistan.
Brandon spent a little time in Pakistan. Kept us abreast of a lot of stuff. This is just one more, then we'll move on.
In Pakistan, aviation is life.
Our mission here is to carry United Nations relief aid, mostly food and construction materials, out to some very remote villages. The only aid to some of these villages today are coming in on helicopters because the roads are totally destroyed.
Working earthquake relief, soldiers, sailors, airmen, and Marines rely on the sturdy Chinook for everything, from aid supplies to mail and fuel. But flying almost 5 times the stateside average makes maintenance vital.
The biggest challenge is just the environment we're flying in and the hours we're putting on the aircraft. We're on pace right now to do over 10,000 hours a year on 12 aircraft, when a lot of units only do about 9,000 on 16 in a combat zone. So the op tempo is very high, and keeping these aircraft flying is probably the biggest challenge.
But for this ad hoc group of aviators from 9 states, Germany, and Australia, the hard work has tangible rewards.
I like flying things. It's great to be able to fly and help people out at the same time. Like I said, everybody's always happy to see a Chinook. That's why I like my job.
Brandon Lamar, Joint Logistics Command, Pakistan.
Actually, look at me things. Look at me things to show. All right, but real quickly, I mean, a lot of the units, brigade levels, battalion levels, have a chaplain. When they get deployed like this, using the senior chaplain that is part of the task force, sets up the plan for religious services and what have you.